Hey guys, I'm going to talk about three ways that you can avoid losing a client. I'm Irene. I'm your best friend when it comes to helping clients, specifically in the financial industry. But I think that my insight can really be applied to any sale, especially when it has to do with money. Anyways, in my over 25 years in the financial industry, I've learned so many things, not just about the financial industry, but learned a lot about people in general and how they respond to, how I was able to position products or position solutions. And there are three ways to avoid, at least ones that for me, three ways to avoid losing a client. Now, I just want to put out there that you're going to lose some clients. Okay. It's, it's not necessarily always because something wrong, but it might be something that you did that was missing from the entire transaction. And I'm going to give you three surefire ways to avoid losing that client. The first one is the most important one, and it is really taking the time to know your client. I think a lot of people think that knowing your client is filling out a questionnaire or a checklist, and that's knowing my client because I've hit all the boxes. And compliant wise, I know my client. But I'm not talking about, their tolerance for risk. I'm not talking about their time horizon or their financial objectives. I'm talking about them. Them in the sense how they've been managing, for instance, in my industry, how they've been managing their finances thus far. I mean, you could apply this to anything like insurance sales, life insurance, disability insurance. Like, how have they managed their protection that they have? In most cases, lack thereof. Um, Even if you were a realtor and maybe you're meeting a client for the time, but this client has owned homes in the past, maybe if they haven't owned homes in the past, they've kind of obviously rented. I mean, getting to know your clients about, what is it that means the most to them in a home, not just location. I get location is a big deal, but, asking questions like, well, what do you envision your perfect home to look like? So again, you could ask these really, pertinent questions, not really think that it's a question that, a banker or a financial advisor would ask, but they're so important because when you get to know your client a little bit and try to visualize how they manage their money, talking to financial advisors or insurance agents, you can really gauge if this is the kind of client that's going to follow your recommendations or if they're going to just dismiss it and treat you like everybody else that they think, oh, you're not helpful. I hate bankers. I hate financial advisors. They only want your money. Listen, guys, you know why a lot of people think that financial advisors are only out there for people's money? Is because there are financial advisors that don't take the time to know their clients and don't talk to their clients after they managed their money or invested their money. They literally just kind of um, get what they earn and then just kind of go. And it's unfortunate that there are people like that out there, but there are a lot of people out there that care about their clients like me. And I found that becoming someone's not necessarily best friend, but some advocate for their financial goals to be met, for me to fight for them, was only possible if I got to know who they were. Um, I'll give you a really simple example. So when I used to work at the bank, we have access to looking at their accounts, and it was very clear that some people eat out a lot. Okay. So you can really gauge kind of a lot from that, right? They're either really busy or they really just don't like to cook. Okay. And so it's a lack of time or a lack of desire that they're always eating out. Now, besides the fact that it's probably unhealthy for you to eat out, especially if it's going to be fast food, it's going to be unhealthy physically. It's probably not good for the wallet either, right? I saw people. I had this one client where They literally spent over $2,000 from all the eating out they did. And they couldn't believe it when I pointed it out. And it's interesting because they were a couple and they both used the same account. And you could tell that the wife was like blaming the husband, but I don't know if he could eat $2,000 of food by himself. So they just weren't communicating, what was going through the account. Either way, I wasn't going to judge how they were spending their money, but I was going to just make them aware. And it was never to make them aware to make them feel judged. It was to make them aware, because I think a lot of the people that come for help, they're just simply unaware. And I think they're either because they just never thought to look and budget and just take a look at how they're spending their money, but they're maybe in some aspect they're just afraid. Okay? Now, how does this come back to knowing your client? So when I ask a question like, so walk me through what happens at payday. Like, do you pay bills on the day? Do you wait for bills to kind of be due before you pay them? Walk me through how things work right now with your paycheck. Do you notice how I just said it like that? That's how you ask, right? It doesn't have to be awkward. You're trying to be advisory, not judgy. You're not trying to diagnose a problem. You're just trying to get to know them. Okay. And I think a lot of us try to diagnose the problem and want to fix it right away, when I'm just really coming from a place of being curious and being curious about how your client thinks and, responds, and a lot more empowering, because you're never going to make them feel judged. And B, if you're actually curious, you're going to ask the right questions. Okay. That is the most way to avoid losing a client, is really building that rapport. Sometimes in my full-time role as a leasing agent for a retirement community, I spend a lot of time just getting to know them. I'll even ask them personal questions, but I've earned the trust and the right throughout the conversation to go a little bit personal. And you know what? A lot of people feel like they walk away from a great conversation with me and they feel accepted and comfortable and confident that I would be the person to help them if they needed someone like me. Okay. One, really get to curious about the client that you're trying to help. Okay. Second one, be transparent. Okay. And what I mean by that is, and it sounds awful because I'm not trying to say that other people are evading information, but being transparent means, explaining what you're going to do with all this information that you've gotten. Okay. Because you've just basically asked them to strip down financially. And you've gotten a whole bunch of personal information, and you're able to get a lot of information. But now you want to tell them how you're going to use that information. So obviously you're not going to use information, against them, right? But that's where you need to be transparent. You're like, so listen, just so you know, I'm taking all this information so I get a clear idea of a holistic picture how things are working with your finances right now. Okay. Because there's so many ways that I know I can help people. So this is what I'm going to do next. And then I just kind of lay it out. I'm going to find a way how I can save you some money in areas that you're already doing. I might even bring some strategies forward next time that I don't know if you know about, but I think would be very beneficial. And I want to make sure that I attack goals 1, 2, and 3 that you mentioned before. So again, when you get to know your client, you're going to get to know their goals, right? When do you want to retire? Why is it important that you look at insurance now? Why is it important that you want to find a new house now? And then instead of explaining next steps, what are you going to do? Why are you going to do it? And you're aligning it to what they came to you for. Okay. I think maybe this time I'll give you an example of a situation when I was at the bank where I didn't do that. But I realized that if I had done it, I might have been able to help them in a bigger way. We helped refinance someone's mortgage to pay off a whole bunch of debt, reduce their payments every month substantially, like I think in the thousands. And the idea was to get them to start to save. Evident that they were always in overdraft. So they were always in the hole. Payday comes in the hole. Okay. It was very evident that there was a lot of spending going on and not maybe a lot of attention to where that spending was going. Long story short, if they had continued on that path, they would continue to be in the hole. Okay. Or continue to get more debts and then go further deep in the hole. So we refinanced their mortgage, paid a whole bunch of their debts off, and starting from ground zero, have a whole bunch of money every month if they just kind of, lived a regular life, I suppose. So what this did was, if I had pre-positioned what I was going to do. So listen, we're going to get all of this wrapped up. You're approved, and we're going to be saving you $1,500 a month. So this is what we need to do with that right now. My recommendation is, putting this into this, and saving money for emergency fund and saving for your retirement. And this is why, right? And then explaining why and showing them what would happen if they didn't start right now. Because it was clear they weren't saving any money. And they were very probably not educated about what would happen if they didn't start saving money. What did they do eventually? Maybe a month and a half. I saw them back into overdraft. And it was almost like we didn't really help them. So they were spending even more money because we freed up a whole bunch of cash flow. So they were spending a whole bunch more money, right? Because remember, we rolled all that debt into their mortgage. We saved them some money with cash flow because he had one payment, but they managed to go back into overdraft. So that means they were spending even more money. And what does that do? When someone's in overdraft and they just want to go and guess, like, well, I need this, so maybe I should apply for this credit card, right? That's just the cycle. So if I had just been transparent with what we were going to do, explain why, right? Explain why and try to gauge, why they felt this was an important transaction, everything into one payment, then I feel like they would have been clients that were very engaged in their own finances and financial goals and achieving those financial goals. So make sure as advisors, as insurance advisors, anything in the financial world, that you're very transparent about what next steps are. So they're not trying to guess, what are you going to do for them? Okay. And it needs to align with what they want ultimately, which kind of goes back to rule number 1. Okay. And the third way that you can avoid losing a client, guys, is ask if whatever you've presented. So let's say that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a way you can save you money here. I'm going to find a way we can build up your savings here. So we're not kind of like, kind of short when we want to actually start looking at retirement. Even if you were young and retirement is not even in your plain view, right? There's a lot of young people that have goals. They just don't have anyone to help navigate how to achieve them. So that's why it's so important to know your client, right? So you could be dealing with somebody who's young and you've asked the right questions, and one day they want to own a house. They don't know why. They just learn that they want to. It's fine, right? Could change too over time. But that's where you're going to be like, I want to come up with a plan so that in 5 years you have the ability to buy your own house. And at the same time, I don't want you to feel broke. I want you to feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck. I don't think anybody wants to feel that way. But I also want you to enjoy life. I want you to feel like you're not sacrificing anything to live, a comfortable life. How does that sound for you? Like, is that kind of what you were looking for when we got together today? Even ask, is that what we're looking for? How does that sound to you? And then actually planning the next steps. Okay. Now, for some of you have the ability to come up with things in your head while they're talking. How are you going to help them? Okay. And that's what, that's where you learn how to do that. But I think they have a little bit of hindsight because we've all been through things, right? Like if you're my age, you've been through financial woes, you've been through financial challenges, you've been through life. Forget the financial stuff. And hopefully you've learned from mistakes. Children, you tell them not to do things because you learned from the same mistake they're about to make. So this is no different. This is absolutely no different. You're kind of like visualizing, how am I going to help this person in a big way, and be impact. But you're also thinking, but it has to be good for them, because really what you want to do, your goal, guys, is to make sure that you're dealing with clients you can help. And I know that sounds very obvious, but some people will try to help clients that they can't help. And I'll give you an example. So, what's a client you can't help? Well, you can't help a client who has their own agenda. Okay. So, if someone is coming to me wanting to do a consolidation loan, well, I know I can't do a consolidation loan. Okay. But what I could do is, really dig in and find out, well, question, why are you looking for consolidation? It's because they're finding their payments to be hard. That's why people get consolidation loans. Some people will say that it's because they want to save on interest. I'll tell you this, that they want to save on interest. They actually don't know how to calculate the interest. And really, consolidating it into one payment is more of a convenience than it is an interest question. But yeah, you could totally save somebody interest. But when someone comes to me for asking for a consolidation loan, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't do consolidation loans, but out of curiosity, why are you looking for a consolidation loan? Oh, I want to, it's just that there's just so many payments. I just like to roll them all into one. It's like, okay, that totally makes sense. Well, would you give me kind of a stab at what got going on and see where I can maybe provide, direction? And they may just be interested in having a consolidation loan. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, I mean, if there was a way I can help alleviate some of your maybe stress over having multiple payments, and I'm guessing it's because you just feel like maybe you're just not getting anywhere. Is that fair to ask? Right? And it's mostly the same, right? And you're like, well, I just have all these big payments and I never get anywhere with them, right? I can usually cover other things, right? And then my goal is to show them how I can help. And again, obviously getting to know my client, explain why I can help them based on their goals. And then, of course, being very, very, trying to earn their trust by asking, how does that sound? Now, they can still say yes or no, right? But I did spend a little bit of time explaining to them where maybe they might want to be versus just kind of staying at the place they are at that point. So the disclaimer is, clients, you can help. Look for those clients. And when I say help, I just want to define that a little bit more. Help meaning get to a place that they are way better financially, and emotionally. Okay, so where they feel better and they are better emotionally, financially, before they met you. They're going to be better after meeting you and after, I guess, executing on the plan that you're going to present to them. That is what I mean by helping. Okay. If you're genuinely trying to get them to a place that is way better than before they even met you. Okay. So that is the disclaimer. Anyways, those are my 3 ways to avoid losing a client. Because once you've become, one of their friends, you've really gotten to know them. You're transparent about what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. And then you simply ask, does that sound like something that you would want? I don't know about you guys, but if someone did that for me, I'd be like, yeah, you're the expert. Just help me. Right. And that's really where it comes down to. So